time. It's been a policy since I've been mayor that the maximum time is 6 minutes. Is that sufficient time for your presentation and talk?
I would ask the council to indulge a possible 2 or 3 minutes beyond the 6. And it's just a possible, and the reason I ask that, I had it down to 5 minutes. But as you well know,
You have to step up to the microphone.
as you well know by my appeal and by my request, the staff report had some errors in it that I think I should be given a little more time to discuss with you.
Well, why don't you go ahead and start on your presentation here. Do your best to keep it down to the time allotted, right?
Mr. Mayor,
How late it is.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I just also wanted to point out that there were many last-minute agenda items on this specific item that were added. I think we set a record. But I just wanted to point that out for the record, that we had several that came in, and they've all been made a part of your staff reports.
Since we're pointing out things, some of the things that were entered, if you definitely take a look at it, I'm here semi-representing ASA, which is Americans for Safe Access. We've made sure that everything on the books is what's necessary, as Mr. Lowe will tell you, to come back later if determination is made against the law. And when I say against the law, other than what the law has provided for. There have been municipalities sued for abandoning.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm being a little bit gracious with you as far as time. I'm not liking where that conversation is going.
Leave that alone.
All right?
Yes. Marcus Boyd, 1233 Palm Avenue, and thank you very much for your indulgence. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, again, and City Council members. I know you've been bombarded with written requests to pass the moratorium and to not allow my land use request. And I know you haven't had enough time to read it all. You know, I've been reading as much as I possibly could about this subject. I've gone a long way to read everything I could find. And when the white paper came out from the California Police Chiefs Association a couple of months ago, I got to page like 19 of 50 something, and I didn't think I could get through it. I thought to myself, what the heck am I doing? There's some really negative stuff in there. I had to stop reading it. It scared me so much. I walked away from it, gathered my thoughts, came back and got through it. And it weighed on my mind, and what I then remembered was my sister. And I remembered why I started doing this in the first place. Her story is a long one, and unfortunately we don't have enough time to actually go through it all, so I'll summarize it. My sister had a stroke several years ago. She lost the use of her right side. I became her care provider. I rented an apartment for her on 13th, and she was living a rough life. But, and then eventually she passed away a couple years ago. But before she passed, we realized together that medical marijuana allowed her to digest her food, and it also allowed her to sleep. And when you're bedridden, little things like that mean an enormous amount, and it made the quality of her life considerably different. She was smiling and laughing every day. When I first moved her in there, she wasn't. So I'm doing this for her, and I'm doing this for the patients that really do need relief, and for the ones that have found relief in medical cannabis. When I saw the wave of moratoriums coming at us, I knew that something had to be done, so I formed a nonprofit organization called South Bay Organic Co-op. And I know my opponents complain about how many dispensaries there are out there, and that they're cropping up like 7-Elevens everywhere. But I need the council to understand there's not one dispensary south of downtown, not one. And there's not going to be one. National City, Chula Vista have preempted with moratorium. San Diego last week or the week before stopped handing any out, and they're probably going to revoke the other. South San Diego, San Ysidro, Bonita, East Lake, all South Bay areas there's nothing going to happen as it is. There will be a few that leave open in San Diego. So here we are in Imperial Beach, and it's up to us. Luckily though, our form of government has checks and balances. Thank you. Our local government has checks and balances, and the City Council serves as a very important role in that. Right now, you're checking and you're balancing two sides to a very important issue. On one side of the scale, you have my request to hear the 6.6 item before the 3.1 item and my land use determination appeal. On the other side of the scale, you have the staff report and a bombardment of requests from special interest groups. My request and appeal provide you with due diligence and good intentions. Written law, Prop 215 and Senate Bill 420, California Attorney General guidelines, and the will of the voters, and an invitation to be a voting board member of the Cooperative. On the other side of the scale, it's leaning towards special interest group requests and a staff report that has provided you with insufficient due diligence to hold up the staff determination. Objections to Proposition 215 and Senate Bill 420. Misquoted Attorney General guidelines. Methods to circumvent the will of the voters, leaving the city vulnerable to lawsuits, and no specific recommendation for regulation or compliance with the law. Your decisions tonight should be a demonstration of earnest consideration, checks and balances, and fair justice. Not the personal beliefs and preferences of special interest groups. Don't get me wrong, I think we have a very good city staff. However, I don't think the city staff provided you with the normal high level of service that the staff report, in the staff report, because medical marijuana prohibitionists and cynical special interest groups provided them with an outdated misinformation campaign. And those naysayers that provided that don't need you to speak for them. They have the microphones, they have the cameras, and they have the positions, the high positions of authority. They even have backdoor access here at City Hall, which leaves it up to me, and more importantly you, each of you, to be a voice tonight for those residents that are sick and dying, who are unable to make a stand for themselves. They do really need you tonight. And I know it's going to be hard to stand up to special interest groups. It's not going to be easy, but it's the right thing to do. And it's the legal thing to do. And if you check and you balance what you've been given to consider this issue, it's really the only thing to do. And please don't align yourself with the county prohibitionists that make your decision rather based on misquoted guidelines and their personal preferences. As a city council member, I don't think you would be sitting in your seat if you didn't hold yourselves to a higher standard.